is the hottest panel of the day because we are talking about what everyone in the industry wants to talk about and know more about, which are creators. And these are the brilliant marketers that are using creators in their campaign. So first, Spencer, why don't we start with you? Could you please explain to the audience what is the difference between an influencer and a creator?
It's a great question, the age-old question of the last year or so. So influencer with a capital I, these are people that I think are more in the macro influencer, mega influencer side of things. When I use the word creator, I'm talking about, emerging folks on the platform that are consistently and passionately making content. These might be defined as nano influencers or micro influencers. That's the short end of it, or at least my definition.
Okay, so would you say that influencers are using more of they're more personality driven and driven, they're marketing directly to the people in their communities, whereas creators, your content is cross-platform? Does anyone else want to answer?
Yeah, I think when we think about creators, the goal is to make a very specific type of content. And that's what their community is about. Influencers, their goal is to have the largest communities and a large following. And there are creators who do have a large following, but that isn't necessarily the goal. So there are people that we've worked with on the creator side who make cakes with song lyrics on them or make cross stitches with quotes on them. And sometimes we work with creators. It doesn't really matter how big their following is, but that type of content can help drive awareness. And so sometimes people hire creators to actually make a specific type of content, and then they want to boost that. So their following matters less, and it's about that piece of content that they can just boost on other platforms as well.
Got it. Okay, great. So let's talk about how you're using creators in your campaign. So Margaret, now you have such a diverse portfolio of TV shows, right? So you've got, how does an influencer campaign or content creator campaign differ with a long-running show like Law and Order compared to a new show like The Paper?
Yeah, I think similar to these folks, we certainly are using creators and influencers, and first and foremost, we're really trying to make exceptional content, build fandom, drive loyalty and community, right? And so that's always top of mind for us. And we view the term influencer or creative, and I tend to use them interchangeably, but we view that much more broadly, right? And it really is us trying to answer the question, who are we trying to target or go after? What audience am I trying to reach? And what do they care most about, right? So for something like Law & Order, I don't have an awareness problem, right? People generally have heard of the show or know the brand. But something like Law & Order, it's like I have the benefit of having so many iconic pieces of the IP. As an example, the song is really iconic. The sound, dun-dun, is very iconic. And so I'm seeding the market, and we're very intentional about that, right? We're seeding the market with pieces of those IP and then leveraging our talent, really, as creators. And so, and a great example of this is, we've had that sound and the entrance song out for a while, and just more recently, that became very viral on TikTok from a creator named Sanoj, and it was the Law & Order dance, right? And so that started to accelerate on platform, and since we treat our talent as creators or influencers, the way that we do that is we put a social embed or a social producer on set. And so they're actually able to capture content that a high-level talent doesn't have the time to capture because they're on set, right? And so they're able to, and we are intentionally able to, create reactive content that is timely, on trend, and also is core to our IP. So that's something you can do with a show that has been on air for a while or has been long-running for a while. I mean, SNL similarly. I think for something brand new like The Paper, the question is, who is best served to love this show and who will most fervently talk about it? And no other audience for The Paper than fans of The Office. And so we use the premiere event as an opportunity to invite Office fans, Office creators, Office influencers to the premiere event so they could have a first look at the first 2 episodes and also be in conversation with talent and also producers.
Right, got it. So let me just quickly ask you, when they came, with the person who came up with the Law and Order dance, you did not go to them and say, I want a Law and Order dance. They just did it and then it took off?
Yes, of course. Yeah. And I think that it's really important when finding creators to work with to find a creator who will most authentically resonate with the audience you're trying to reach, and also, right, authentically loves our brand. The best relationships are going to be those that are mutually beneficial. And so to that extent, we are just monitoring the internet, right? I mean, I have people on the team who their whole job is to be online and to see what's trending and what's coming up. And again, we have a process and operations that are set up to act in real time. Right. And so that allows us to shorten the distance between a brand and the fandom that loves it.
Great. Dustin, you've had enormous success with Freakier Friday. So really, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
So tell us about how you use creators with that campaign.
Sure, yeah. Thank you. Freakier Friday was a really fun one. That was the digital marketing strategy from the outright, was to involve creators in the campaign. We also had every single person in the film, all the talent, but our 2 leads were very active on social. So bringing them into the fold, we met with our talent early out, informed them of our digital marketing strategy that was going to have creators every step of the way, from trailer launch to pink slip performances to our own dedicated digital days with talent, and just creating these moments that were sort of one of a kind. Jamie Lee Curtis surprising all of our creators at a beach day, right? We had the whole film takes place in LA. I don't know if everyone saw it, but it takes place in LA, and it was a sort of a love letter to Los Angeles. And what we did is we created a bus and brought all these creators to all the locations, but at each location was talent from the film, and that was a big surprise. So first stop, record store Chad Michael Murray owns in the film. That blew up. There was such an affinity for Chad, so there was content creating with them, all the talent, all the stops. And it just continued the entire campaign, and thankfully the talent was so leaned in and so excited by all of this. There was never any pushback or pressure. It was, what else can you do? Especially Jamie Lee Curtis, for those that have worked with her. She is all in, and she was great. She was fantastic. So it was just the entire campaign, from first beat out with trailers to premiere, and even continue through post-open. We had a test lookalike screening second week of the film's launch. So it just continued the whole way through.
So when you put them all on the bus, do you say, get on the bus, we're going to drop you off, and then do whatever you want? Or do you give them a framework, a guideline, an outline? Do you tell them this is what's acceptable with Disney, this is what is not?
We don't put guardrails in that way, but there was an itinerary of what we were accomplishing. It was going to be thematic to the film, and there was going to be some fun, very LA-centric things, and you just create opportunities and moments for content creation, and it happened organically, and all of these moments sparked and just hit everyone's FYP in a really positive way. And ultimately, the film hitting 150 million globally recently was just a big success. So we're very, very proud of the campaign.
We're going to talk about measurement later, because I want to know how you measured that success. Okay, so we're moving on to Jolt and to Tara. So Jolt is a platform. It's a new platform. You're going to tell everybody what it is, that uses analytics to connect creators' works to the right audience. So tell us a little bit about the platform, and is that a challenge for creators? Because you're working with creators finding the audience, and at the same time, you're tapping into the creators' audiences.
Yes. So we started Jolt to try to solve the problem of distribution for independent film primarily, and figuring out how films were actually going to find audiences. When I was the chief product officer at Sundance, we realized during the pandemic that there was a huge audience for specific films, but maybe not for independent film itself. So there was always this idea that you could connect audiences directly to films, but we just never really got to try it until, sort of the crisis and films not being acquired. So we built a machine learning algorithm that effectively looks at which audiences are going to be the most likely to convert to actual watches of a creator or of a filmmaker. And we've also worked with filmmakers that are really willing to break the paradigm and kind of, in a way, become creators themselves. So we work with people on different tiers. We work with audiences directly, and we do the regular amount of marketing that people do through paid campaigns of our own, and we have sort of, teams that do that. But we surround each film with individual creators Sometimes it's organizations, sometimes it's nonprofits, sometimes it's corporations. And so we think of creators a little bit more broadly. We think of it as almost like affiliate marketing or proxy marketing. And then those people, because they have access to the audience that we think is going to be the most specific to the content that we're trying to push out, those are the ones that we'll work with very specifically. And just to give an example of that, because that's a little abstract, we worked on a film that has kind of medicine at the theme. It was a story about a young girl with leukemia who was treated with the first immunotherapy that had been developed from the AIDS virus, actually, and survives. And so a film like that had a parent audience, it had a community nonprofit audience, it also had a science and technology audience. Our algorithm kind of pointed us in the direction of the science and technology audience, so we spent a lot of time creating content and finding people in that space, doctors, other oncologists, that had audiences that were going to actually be able to watch a film that was really hard to watch about cancer, where the families themselves maybe couldn't and didn't convert. So that's how we think about it.
Right, and so those people then go on to become the influencers for the film.
Correct. They're like the proxy influencers who then tell everybody you have to go see this film.
Okay, that's interesting. So Dalia, you've been credited with defining what social TV means for the industry, starting with your groundbreaking work on Pretty Little Liars. Woohoo for Pretty Little Liars. A lot of fans. So now let's talk about how you use sidewalk creators to showcase Somber's sense of humor. Somber, who was one of our Power of Young Hollywood Impact List honorees. But first, tell everybody, what's a sidewalk creator?
Okay, so 3 years ago, I left television to work in music. And a really important part of music marketing is you want to break the songs, but you really want to break the artist as well and build long-term careers. And one of the biggest music success stories of the year is our artist Somber. And he currently has 3 songs in the top 15, so if you don't know him, check him out. But what we saw that fans loved about him is that his music is really high quality and high production, but he himself does not take himself too seriously. He's very charming and he's very funny. So part of his huge rise has been pairing him with content creators who are these sidewalk creators, and they're man-on-the-street style creators that interview him about various topics that he's interested about, and they bring out his comedy and his charm. And so an example of that you might see on TikTok, for example, is Tyler Walsh. He's the guy on the street who asks people, what do you do for a living? And when you ask an artist that, you're going to get a really clever response. And so we've partnered Somber with these creators, and they've shown how charming he is. And that's why fans aren't just streaming his music, but they've really fallen in love with Somber.
But how did you find those sidewalk creators?
We stay on top of who is the best creators and influencers at all times. We have a lot of dashboards, and so we're always looking to see who is the audience of these creators, and then we reach out directly. So I have a large viral team, and we just find these influencers and creators, and we reach out directly, and then we book our artists on them.
So you're spending a lot of time yourself personally vetting.
We all do, yeah. I have a team, but I think influence can change day by day, right? And so that's the thing. Somebody who was influential 6 months ago might not be influential today. And so the lists that we use, the creators, the influencers, that's constantly changing, which is why we have a large team in-house that's set up to track who's hot today, because that's going to be different than who's hot 6 months from now.
Okay, great. Spencer has an Oscar. Well, Neon has the Oscar. But anyway, Oscar winner, Honora. So please tell us how you used influencers and creators to drive those ticket sales, to create awareness especially for Honora coming out of the film festival circuit.
Incredible, yeah. So it's interesting hearing everyone talk about some of the more talent-first approaches, because there was a more talent-first creator approach that came later down the line, but for us, I remember, and I still hold very dearly to my heart, the first time that I was able to see Anora on the big screen. It's such an extraordinary movie. We all knew it from the moment we saw it, and the immediate opportunity there was this, younger Gen Z cinephile audience. It's people that love Sean's past films. It's people that know what the Palme d'Or is. It was our 5th consecutive Palme d'Or win after Anora premiered at Cannes. It's also people that know and love the Neon brand. So we knew that we had a great film on our hands, and for us, the number one priority with creators right out the gate was to screen the movie. Because it's like, ultimately, we want people talking about how incredible the movie is. And later downstream on that campaign, there were more talent opportunities that came up. But for us, it was like, we got to get the people to see it. We got to get them to see it the way Sean wants them to see it, on 35 millimeter, with an audience in a theater, and to really spread the word of mouth about how sort of sacred and special that experience is. So that's something that was really important at the very beginning and that we saw all the way through. And then in terms of audiences, New York, LA, it's where we started, where the movie opened last year. So it was that cinephile audience there, but as we continued to expand nationally, we also opened up our creator pool there. And there weren't any there was maybe 1 or 2 influencers we worked on in this campaign, but for the most part, it was a lot of, more micro-influencers, creators that are just passionate about movie and love to talk about movies on their platform that we targeted with this at the very beginning and also at the very end of the campaign.
Okay, you have the film Anora, and you're going to find micro-influencers. How are you going to find micro-influencers that are related to that film?
Well, specifically with these people that love film, for me and also for the entire team at Neon, it's a lot of, I'd say, doom scrolling at night. We all love movies. We're all avid film goers, and I think it's just sharing what we find. Obviously, we have tools that help, navigate these platforms as well. But with us, when the first step when we need to reach and speak to that cinephile audience, it's relationships that we've been building over the last few years with creators, and also constantly keeping our eye out for the new creators on the platform that are talking about film and loving film.
So, Margaret, we're mentioning tools. What tools do you have? Like, this is our platform where we find creators, and this is our platform where we measure. Are you using multiple tools, or tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we certainly use multiple tools, I think, for different types of insights. Right. So we have standard social measurement tools that help us with reach engagement, estimated, earned reach, all of that. And for me, that's the top line metric, right? If I want to get on a Discover page or FYP, the way that I'm going to do that is by showing acceleration. And so that's a very hard metric. There's also tools that we use, as an example, and I'm sure many people in this room are aware, like we use Sprout, we also use Listen First as an example, to help with more qualitative metrics, right, around conversation. And so those are 2 tools that we use. When you're directly asking, how do I find the right influencer? Right. It's not as much of a science, and I think that's what everyone's saying, as much as it is an art, right? Because no piece of content is the exact same. No piece of content is going to be a perfect fit for the largest influencer, right? And so what you need to think about, because for us it's not just a creator campaign or a marketing campaign, it's both, right? And they have a relationship to each other and they're symbiotic. So is there a piece of our marketing plan that I can't buy, that I can't reach in an authentic way? And for me, that's where a creator can come in, right? Because, of course, we all know the number one way that people find out about shows or movies is because somebody tells them about it. And so an influencer or a creator can be that trusted friend for an audience who maybe isn't so ripe to a trailer in a film, or isn't so ripe to a promo that they see on the internet, right? And so we're really trying to find people that are speaking to our target in a way that we can't buy, and also it's contextually relevant. As an example, SNL 50, I'm looking for creators who are either fans of late night, who are fans of comedy, or use that in the content that they create. And I'm trying to give them something that is going to elevate their platform. And what better thing to elevate their platform than the ticket that nobody can get, right? And so it's really about finding something symbiotic, mutually beneficial. And to me, again, and I think Dustin said it earlier, right? We want to do things that are organic. The internet is not a big ad, right? People want to feel things that feel natural and organic and true. And so that's what we're trying to foster versus produce, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to also mention too, I completely agree, and I think part of this, the conversation, the question that you've asked is how are we finding these? And certainly we can use tools and we can work with different agencies to help narrow down, but I think there's one commonality amongst all of us. We're in it ourselves. We are all scrolling and searching, and I think to be effective at it, you have to be in. You have to be looking and see what gets you to stop, thumb stopping, right? Whether it's a piece of content, whether it's a creator, you will find much more success, I believe, and I think we're all saying this, if you're an active participant in this, you'll know what feels authentic because it worked on you. You'll know what feels like an ad, and maybe you want to pivot away from something like that. But I think all of us find ourselves, like was just said, doom scrolling, right? We're up late at night, we're checking different platforms, and we're in it to find out what content is appealing to us, and it might be to others. And then I'm sure first thing we do is click the comment section. See what everyone else is saying in the comments.
So how many hours a day are you spending on something?
Too many. Yes.
You're doom scrolling at 1 a.m.
It's usually late at night when my kids have finally fallen asleep and I have a minute to myself, and then I said, put the phone down and go to bed. And hopefully it's a win if I don't get that damn TikTok ad saying, have you been scrolling? This is how I like, so if I can beat that, then it's a win.
Very good answer. Okay, Tara, what opportunities for marketers, what are the opportunities for marketers to align with Jolt? How do they study, how can they find new creators through your platform? How can everyone on the panel find new creators through your platform?
I'm going to go back to the previous question just to answer that question. I think the thing to think about when you think about creators or influencers or micro-influencers is they spend their lives doing this, and it's actually really hard. I worked with the Creator Academy a little bit at YouTube, even in 2017 or 18, I can't remember, but they work at this 20 hours a day. A good video takes 7 hours. I have my sister-in-law, she has 8 million followers on TikTok. It takes her 20 hours to make a reasonable video that's going to get millions of views. They need content. They need content ideas. They are excited. The more you come to them with, the more that you can say, I want this thing, I want it to be like this. You're solving a problem for them too, in a way, because they need to get content out to their audiences. The other thing just to think about, just as it pertains to them, is not every influencer, it's not even that they're not hot anymore. It's that different influencers will reach, the audience has to be completely aligned with what you want. And they might have the right audience for one thing and not the right audience for another. So in terms of what we're doing, we are working with brands, we're working with filmmakers, we're working with partners to do a lot of this work. We've automated a lot of it, so we don't have to doom scroll all day. We actually have, we have AI agents doing some of that. We also are analyzing, and we're using all the normal tools, but we built our own to analyze in real time. If I'm trying to achieve this goal for this feeling, for this type of content, what worked the last 5 times, what might work, what copy, what images. So we're trying to automate as much of this workflow as possible to make it really fast to test things and then really get the tests out quickly. So I think that's how we're, I think, partnering with people most effectively, and the fact that we actually now have close to almost a billion. I think next week it'll be 1 billion data points that we can actually draw on to say this type of content, this type of topic, this type of filmmaker, this type of audience is going to react this way on this platform, and that's really and it changes all the time, and so all of that changes. Yeah.
So, thank you for that. Dalia, we're talking about success. Has anything ever failed? Have you ever hired one of these creators and it's just been, I won't say a disaster, but let's say it just didn't work?
I wouldn't say anything's been a disaster per se. I think some things just end up being ineffective, right? And that's the thing. It's like sometimes influencer marketing really works, and sometimes they're just it doesn't always work. You can't force influencer marketing to have impact. And so any marketer knows that, right? It can sometimes depend on the product that you're marketing. So every once in a while we do a campaign and maybe it doesn't, and maybe it hits 6 months later, but it didn't have that impact in real time. That's the fun part working in music is that something might not be a hit now, but it'll be a hit down the road. And so we might think something's a failure, and then maybe it won't, 6 months later, something will rise up. But not every campaign is effective. We try to generate impressions. We measure it very carefully. When you were asking about measurement, data science is a huge part about working in music, because what we do is we track the impressions of every sound on every social platform, and we have a dashboard that our research team built, and we can see how many impressions is a song doing on every single social platform, and is it driving streams. So we can see 100% correlation at any hour of the day. And so sometimes you can generate impressions through influencer marketing and it doesn't correlate, and that's what we're really looking at. So we ramp up our spends when we're seeing, okay, if we're driving impressional volume through influencer marketing on social platforms and it's correlating with streams, that's what tells us to add additional money, but sometimes it doesn't work. And that you might consider that a fail, but you can't force consumers to want a product.
The feeling that the campaign could have been forced, that is something that may be considered a less effective campaign, right?
Correct.
Right, exactly. So, Spencer, what do you think what are the traits and the qualities that, if let's say somebody's out here and they want to become a content creator? This is a broad question, by the way. What do you think are some of the traits that make them effective?
Great question. It's passion first and foremost. It's the storytelling, even if it's something as simple as a get ready with me video. Everything that a creator puts out is a story. So that's really the first thing that I'm drawn into and that my whole team is drawn into when we watch this type of content. I think it's consistency. I think it's the frequency at which people are posting is something that we also look at closely. I think it's also the, quality or the type of post, however you want to define it. But, if we want people to talk about movies, we don't want to invite people that are going to post a photo of a ticket at a premiere on their Instagram stories and nothing else. So we're looking for that sort of really meaningful conversation around the films.
Okay. I want to go back to Freakier Friday because I want you to please tell us how do you measure the success working with the creator? I get how a makeup brand would, I'm going to show you how to put on the eyeshadow, click this link, it's direct to the consumer, you can measure the buy. How do you measure awareness?
So we have social volume that we track week over week. And for something like Freakier Friday, when we were working with your creators and we had that big day, that was a concentrated day, we noticed that the social volume doubled in that 1 week. Yes, it completely doubled. And prior to that was a lot of maybe the traditional media that was running, spots, if it was spots and paid placement, et cetera, just wasn't generating the social conversation. The content then that pushed out as a result of those days with the creators and the talent, social volume doubled in 1 week. So it was an automatic, this was effective, this worked. You can also look at and I think we all do the same thing, we look at the engagement on the posts of the creators that they were making. The number one thing that I look at is shares. I look at shares above anything, above likes, comments, anything. That's where I can see, I think is a true measure of success and how something can rise. If the first instinct is to DM it to a friend, I think sometimes I do that even before liking the video, and I think that's you can see the virality of something taking off in that way. So we look at social volume week over week, and we can see when we have our concentrated digital efforts, and we see where it's having an impact for sure.
Are these tools that you're using homegrown to Disney, or are they outside tools?
Internal.
Yeah, okay. So Margaret, when you're hiring your team, what are you looking for in the people to work for your team on social?
Oh,
with the creators.
Sure, great.
So, right, because you were all saying you got to use the tool, you got to be up at night on Instagram and TikTok.
Within reason.
I laugh.
Okay. What are you looking for? How are you going to hire the right people so that they really know what they're doing?
Yeah, I think there are people who are chronically on the internet and they love it. And that's who's on my team to some extent, right? People who are on the platforms du jour, but also people who are just really interested in the ecosystem, right? I mean, I think we all know what TikTok used to be, right? And so that's like a fun thing to think about, right? There were folks who worked on it before. It is what it is today. And I think Dustin mentioned it. Of course, we are online, but we have teams who are online. We have agencies who are online. In terms of qualities, I mean, I come from a digital background and from a direct response background. So for me, I'm maniacally focused on data, right? And I think the beautiful thing about working in a role like mine is that when you're working in entertainment, I get to pair things like creative storytelling and effectiveness. So to your point, when you say shares is the most effective or the most salient data point that you look at, I think it is because for me, you drove an action, right? Somebody didn't just look at your content and it resonated with you, but you drove an action to actually take and share that, which again is what we're all trying to do, is to create a cultural conversation that people are participating in and feels effective.
How do you know it's real? How do you know these aren't just bots?
I mean, there's a level of visibility that you can look at to understand if things are bots. And I mean, I think really clearly, especially on large viral posts, right? A quick spot check is really obvious to see how much bot you have versus like, are there humans engaging with it?
I think it's engagement, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say the other thing is, I'm not necessarily looking at how effective a creator's following is by itself, right? Like if they can service their audience, amazing. I want them to be part of the team, right? To amplify something in their space and also cross over into new spaces, right? One of the things that's so great about NBCUniversal is that we have a broadcast network, we have a streaming service, we also have sports and news. And so I'm looking for creators who actually can exist in many spaces, right? No better thing than Love Island, right? Is a great example of something that can exist in many places. How do I get a show that is so salient, but also speaks to younger people, potentially NBA athletes, et cetera? And so I think it's really important that you're not only looking at what type of engagement, but like where that engagement is happening also, right? Is it owned in your own channel or is it earned?
All right, great. Thank you. Tara, this is a very crowded space. What are some of the strategies for these content creators to really stand out?
I think the most important thing is probably to remember that what people value is access. And I think the best creators are kind of creating access, right? They're creating access. They're being authentic. They're creating something that's behind the scenes. They're creating something that's unique. Anything that's showing the world something that they can't see otherwise is kind of the kind of creator that you're going to want to be promoting your work. And that bus experience to me is like a perfect example of that, because the creators themselves got access, but then they gave access to audiences and to their audiences and kind of said, stick with me, like I'm somebody who gives access. And that feeling of creating something real and authentic, I think is probably the most important thing to pay attention to.
And Dalia, what is the mix that you use between, you're still using traditional marketing,
Yeah.
obviously. That's not going away, or is it going away?
No, I mean, look, I think most of our money is spent digitally. I would say 30 to 40% of that is in the influencer creator space. So that is increasing, but and it's a really important part of our media mix, but we also still need things like paid advertising, and when we look at our marketing budget, it also includes things like hiring social agencies for our artists, and those costs are never going to go away. Short form content is going to keep increasing. That's probably one of our biggest costs that have increased over the years, because these platforms are really valuing a high volume of campaign. It's not just quality, it is also quantity at this point. And so, influencer marketing is a huge piece of it, but so is making sure that we have a really high volume of short form content, not just for the artist accounts, but other accounts. And so I think that's actually one of the things that have changed a lot in the past year, is just you need to have a high volume of content, more than you ever have before, just even break through.
So Spencer, is influencer marketing a more effective way of spending your marketing budget, or is it actually more expensive?
It's not a big line item on our budget. It's just because our approach is extremely relationship driven on every single campaign that we do. We don't pay for big agencies. We don't do, maybe there's like 1 or 2 paid partnerships per campaign, but we really just try to be really cost efficient in every single thing that we do, because it's that organic, authentic word of mouth that we want to drive that we know that we can't always get in a paid partnership video.
Wait a minute. I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. You're telling me that you get the content creators to work for free for you? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it's through access. It's seeing the movie early. It's being part of junk.
He's not wrong. He's absolutely not wrong.
I was going to say, would you like to come be on my team?
No, he's absolutely not wrong.
Wait.
In many cases, absolutely. Like, again, here's a really great example of where we're doing this. So one of the things that we have found in recent years, particularly amongst younger audiences, is there is a renewed interest in doing things in real life. And I really believe, especially with some of our longstanding IP, that there's really easy ways for us to drive IRL engagement that translates to social conversation. Perfect example of this is Olivia Benson Plaza with Law & Order. We have the Dun Dun Diner coming up. Another great example of this is the SNL 50 experience. And what we do there is we give people access to potentially a talent drop by. We give people access to an experience or a ticket that's hard to get. That ticket could be a experience where talent's going to be there. It could be a premiere. It could be seeing something for the first time. And so, again, back to the point of we want things to feel authentic and organic. You want that relationship to be mutually beneficial, right? Like, I am interested in their voice in the audience that they're reaching, and they are interested in either access or an experience or being close to talent or behind the scenes, right? And so there's ways to put people in the right position where they're benefiting certainly on their channel for clout, likes, whatever, or for content to the point of it's very expensive and hard to make compelling content.
I think one point, though, to differentiate is the level of IP that you're bringing so that it is mutually beneficial. So, for example, there are these 2 creators, they sing in their kitchen, and they go viral all the time. We heard that they were a fan of Goo Goo Dolls' Iris, which is now in the top 10. And so that's a hit song. It's been a hit. It's been around for almost 30 years. So we had John Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls go to their kitchen and sing with them. That's not a paid opportunity. It's like that's bringing value to these guys. We knew it was going to go viral, but that was definitely a symbiotic partnership. So when you're talking about Kai Cenat had his Mafia-thon, so Twitch streaming is really important. We've been booking artists on that live stream. We're not paying for that. So we had Teddy Swims do a performance at 2:30 in the morning on this live stream. That was totally free because we were bringing Teddy Swims, right? So I think when you're bringing established IP, that is of value to the creator, and you generally don't have to pay for that.
And that's what their audiences love. That's why they follow them, right? They're waiting for that content, and you're solving a problem for them by giving them an opportunity to connect with their audience.
This would be very different, though, if we were talking to Toyota, right? I mean, I guess if they're giving cars, but okay.
I would make a free video if I got a car, I think.
Take the car. They'll take
But
the
it
car.
wouldn't be different if they were trying to launch a new car brand, right? Like that's where this kind of marketing would be really helpful to them, right? They don't need to tell people what Toyota is, but they need to say why you should buy this electric one or that one.
The only other thing I'd add is there's other creators that are outside of experiences that exist that we are paying them, and we're making sure we're paying them for their work, what they're doing. So there's been a whole edits movement on TikTok, right, with all of these editors that are doing these high quality, re-trailer edits, the Creed edit, everyone knows Creed edit, all these different ones. Studios ourselves are paying attention, and if we're going to work with them, we're paying them for their work, and they deserve it because they're doing something. And that's not something just because they're working on our IP. It's a trade-off. If it's an IRL experience, certainly that's a different conversation. But this is in an editing suite, doing something, creating something completely bespoke.
Yeah.
They deserve the payment.
Okay. Well, we clearly needed an hour, but the time has come where we all have to stop talking. So, but I want to thank you, and I do want to say that creators are here to stay. Would we say that they're not going away? It is not a fad. This is not a fad. But anyway.
Not a fad.
Not a fad. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.